When your data architectural diagram starts looking like a spider web, there is likely something going on underneath the hood that shouldn't be. And what this does is essentially it causes semantic sprawling, report sprawling, multiple access points for users to get different data that's been transformed differently in different places. It just creates a large problem for your organization. In this diagram specifically, we look at the source system. So maybe you have an OLTP, like an on-prem SQL database that gets sent to a central warehousing environment, or you're working within, Microsoft Fabric or something like that, and you're working within a lake house. But all of these are being sent into one place. There is an orchestration where all of that data is being sent to. It gets sent to the warehouse. Sometimes data gets sent directly into prod. Sometimes it gets sent into dev. There's engineers fast tracking things. You have unstructured PDFs entering a file sharing component like SharePoint, which creates like a file swamp without any connection to your data. You have software engineers building visuals off your OLTP directly into an application that external users are using that doesn't match your internal data. You have multiple BI tools that are pulling from the same place with different logic housed inside the BI tools. You don't have a centralized semantic layer. So basically, your BI tools are pulling directly from your warehouse, and all of your semantic models live in all of your Power BI files, and they're scattered across different locations unless you have an on-prem server of which you're spending many, dollars on. On top of this, users may have direct access to your warehouse. They may have direct access to the source systems because the warehouse doesn't hold the data that they need. So they're exporting Excel files and importing those Excel files into Power BI. It's chaos. So really, that's what I think about when I think of messy data. Not just one thing, but an encompassment of your data operations and how you can just map that. So if I was to take your organization and map it just like this, I could probably point out all of the problems that exist on your map. So the first part is kind of building a map on what your data ecosystem looks like. So if we do that, then you probably all have messy data on this call. Um, so what does messy data look like? Again, everything that I listed, data engineers are taking shortcuts, creating long-term debt and brittle pipelines. Old logic, like 20-year-old, 15-year-old logic, lives in tables that no one understands anymore, or in people's heads, and you've created silos across your organization. You have no semantic layer, so BI tools are directly querying your warehouse. Or you have multiple BI tools because one team decided that they wanted this tool so bad, and another team decided they wanted to keep the centralized tool. So now you have two. Seen that before. It's not great. Users have access to multiple places. Software engineers build visuals off your OLTP that doesn't match your OLAP. You have a file swamp. And data scientists are connecting directly to your development layer because they don't have the granularity in your prod to build what they need to build. Or they connect it directly to spreadsheets that are exported from the source systems. And lo and behold, you have another floating spreadsheet. Anyways, I could go on. The list goes on longer than this, surprisingly. But this just gives you a sample of what I mean by messy data. So how do we fix that? Well, a lot of organizations focus on, well, we got to hire data governance consultants. We got to get these we got to get a data governance roadmap for our organization to fix all of this. Well, I actually call that the leaky bucket theory. So you're spending so much money trying to organize your data, to establish owners, label data and columns and tables, which is great. It's great. But at the end of the day, the operations of your organization are just creating a leaky bucket. So even though you're spending all this money and effort to do data governance on your data, your operations don't support that. So you'll still end up with report sprawling, semantic sprawling, and operational flaws in your data, even though that you're trying to identify and do all of these things. So um, where does that leave you? Um, so we created this workshop so that A, we can identify problems or gaps in our architecture and our operations. Um, and also allow you to look at what is modern data architecture? What does that look like? How are organizations setting up their architecture for AI to sit on top of it? Um, what is a gold layer? So a gold layer within your warehouse, the source of truth, basically the ingredients in your kitchen. How do you make those ingredients? And what is considered organizational excellence as far as a gold layer fundamentals are concerned? So if your organization had a bunch of ingredients in their kitchen to grab data from, you want to set up those ingredients just so that everybody has capable self-service at the end of the day, as well as AI has a place to access with context, with the tables that it needs, with the right descriptions and the ontology that you can utilize for, conversational analytics. So we talk about the gold layer, how to compose it and workshop. And the gold layer is fundamental because you actually want this before you build a semantic. Um, so a gold layer is the foundation of which your data lives. Um, and then after that, we'll do kind of a networking break, seat rotation. We'll move into semantic self-service design. So we're skipping the bronze. If you're familiar with Medallion, we will be talking about Medallion architecture within the data architectural fundamentals, but those are more data engineering questions on how do I ingest this data? How do I standardize this data? But what we're trying to do in this workshop is help you understand um, how to get there to the gold and then work off the gold to build everything else. Um, where we will talk about the silver and bronze within the modern data architecture, but it won't be as in depth as the gold layer in semantic. Um, so after the gold layer, we will talk about the semantic self-service design, where you're utilizing the tables in your gold layer to build those information files, essentially. Because semantic files are just information files like Power BI. If you're familiar with Power BI, you have models and you're linking those models together, or an ERD, an entity relationship diagram. Um, it's how to build it well, and how to build it to match your business. Because at the end of the day, your business has to match your data. And we do that through semantic design because semantic just means meaning. So we're creating meaning out of your business data. And then the gold layer is what is our ingredients in our kitchen that we're going to be pulling off of to make our semantic. After the semantic design and how to do that, we're going to be doing a semantic design workshop, as well as we're going to be talking about how AI can sit on top of your gold layer, as well as sit on top of your semantic layer for conversational analytics. And what is the ROI from AI? How does AI engineering work from an enterprise level perspective? We are vendor agnostic. So we don't care what you use. We don't care about Databricks. We don't care about Fabric. Um, they're cool tools and they have a lot of built in. And I think they would love to sell you on more things. But that's not our approach. Our approach is more, um, these are fundamentals that you can take away for any layout that you may run into. Um, so we're not trying to we're only working in Microsoft Fabric today. That's not what this is. Um, and then after that, we'll have an interactive group session with Kyle, which I'll go through the speakers as well after this. But we have 4 different speakers. that we're going to be running through this. And I call it the agenda-ish because we may elaborate on things. People may have more questions. I'm not worried about going over in these particular situations with, people wanting to learn more, essentially, or giving more time. So, who should attend? Well, have we've had many different attendees at the previous events. Um, a lot of them fall into these four buckets. And it's interesting because you go to different cities and the people that attend are very part of different organizations. So, for example, like Calgary, there's all mostly oil companies. And then you go to Vancouver, lots of public entities. Edmonton's similar. It's like lots of oil companies. So it's very interesting to see the attendees based on like the region. I thought that was pretty fascinating. But also all of the attendees, regardless of what organization they're in, they fall into one of these four buckets. So product and program managers, you're trying to create a roadmap for your team. Sometimes that involves building something in data, whether you're moving on-prem to a cloud, whether you're trying to build out a semantic layer and you need a program manager or a product manager to help you do that. Those folks are welcome to attend. We try to make this not so we try to make it for less technical and more technical, so kind of a mixed bag between the attendees. And then data analysts, BI devs, analytics engineering, or data scientists. It's just good to understand the whole gamut of what you're dealing with. Sometimes when you work for an organization, you're only siloed to a particular learning, right? But in this case, you're learning end to end. Data engineers and architects, you're going to see a lot of problems that you probably know exist, but there's no strongholds or mechanisms to help you navigate through those problems, as well as that maybe there's no red tape that leaders just don't know about, and you've kind of just swept things under the rug, so to speak. Business and technology leaders, we identify where the problems exist and what you should be focused on, and a practical framework of how to look at things. As well as we talk about cost, which is the biggest proponent of data warehousing because you got compute costs that sits on top of storage costs and your semantic costs. If they don't have a caching layer, then you're constantly querying the warehouse and your semantic layer expands. So basically, you're spending way more on your semantic than you are on your warehouse. What are the takeaways from this workshop? Well, we want to give you a framework. We're not here to sell. We're here to give you a framework and recognize your architectural bottlenecks. We want to give you a scalable blueprint. So understanding how everything works and how it fits together from an end-to-end perspective. We want you to better understand and speak the language so that you can speak the language to your own teams. We want you to, whatever you're working on, at least have a new lens on your new initiatives that you might be taking on and the implications of those implementations. And then finally, at the end of the day, we want practical things you can take back to your org. The speakers to this event, again, we're talking about end to end, so it's a story. The beginning of our story starts with modern data architecture. Dil Mustafa is an ex-Best Buy director. He's a friend of mine. I've worked with him. He has 15 years of experience. He's a senior data architect, and he talks about lakehouse, data lake, which a lakehouse is the compute layer on top of whatever your storage layer is. So your data lake is your storage layer. The compute layer sits on top of the storage, hence the lakehouse, and warehousing environment, and other data architectures, and what the evolution was, and how we got from point A to point B today. Medallion architecture, everybody's heard that term, maybe. maybe, not sure. But bronze, silver, gold. What's composed in your bronze? How do you standardize that in silver? And what you should compose in your gold or create in your gold? The modern data landscape, what it looks like today, what problems you might be running into today. And then we're going to point out example architectures from Fabric, Databricks, Snowflake, you name it. After talking about modern data architecture and kind of giving you an understanding of like the layout of the land, we're going to jump straight into gold. We will be talking about bronze and silver in the data architecture. We're going to talk about gold. Gold is arguably how you should aim to match your business to your data and one of the most important layers in your warehouse. We have Raj, he's ex JP Morgan. He also works at G2. He's G2.com, which is the largest software review site in the world. They acquired Gartner's products. So if you've heard of Gartner, G2 kind of merged with them. He has 10 years plus experience. I've also worked with Raj. He's a lead data professional at G2. He's going to talk about what is the gold layer, how to compose it, framework for matching businesses to gold, and then designing practical approaches to how to build gold. I'm going to talk about the semantic layer, how to compose it, framework for matching business to semantic layer needs, and then designing. And then Kyle is going to come on and he runs a company called Credible. I've worked with Kyle. He's worked at Google for 17 years. He also works with the Looker co-founders. So this event is essentially sponsored by Malloy language, and the Malloy language is an evolution of LookML. And we're sponsored by the co-founders of Looker. Looker is Google's BI product. So Kyle's going to talk about how AI sits on top of your data. I give an example here. What was revenue last quarter? The Gen AI application spits out something. The CRO says that's incorrect. He already presented that to, a board, and then he runs to the data team yelling at them saying, why is this incorrect? The data team says that, well,
CRO.
it doesn't know what the gross net it doesn't know what revenue means basically, because you got gross revenue, net revenue, MRR, NRR. So it doesn't know what you mean by revenue. This is where context and ontology fit in. So we'll talk about that. Additional notes. After the event, we normally have a cocktail hour. You're all welcome to attend the cocktail hour. We normally give out some free appies, free drinks. I do say agenda-ish because we got Q&As. Always, we're going to pass around mics. You can ask questions. And then we also have our team-based assignments where we've converted Dama Toronto into Dama Blueberries and Co. And we will, present a use case, and you'll be broken out into teams and work on those use cases together. Finally, that's it. That's what I got today for slides. But I want to open it up for questions because I kind of ran through a bunch of stuff. So yeah, opening the floor for anyone.